Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jason Manganoy. I am the publisher of Canadian Business. And today we are going to be talking about entrepreneurship. So, one of the biggest obstacles for Canadian entrepreneurs when it comes to growing their businesses is access to capital. And when you look at business owners who are newcomers to Canada, Indigenous, or from communities facing systemic racism, the barriers are even more entrenched and harder to overcome. Credit unions were founded over 100 years ago to help empower entrepreneurs and communities by providing an alternative to traditional banks. In the case of Meridian Credit Union, one of Canada's largest, it was created to provide financial services to grape growers in the Niagara region of Ontario. And according to my guest today, Meridian CEO, Jay-Ann Gilfoy, Meridian continues to focus on providing financial services for good and finding a way to say yes when banks say no.
Mm.
Welcome, Jan.
Thanks, Jason. Glad to be here.
So you're somewhat newish to the role.
hmm
How are you liking the job so far?
I love it. Yeah, I feel like I'm so grateful I was given such a gift to lead this organization that's been doing amazing work for many, many years, as you said, starting with our kind of core founders, and it's in our DNA, and it's great to be able to, have a purpose profit combo leadership role.
I love that. So tell us about your career. Where did you
Yeah,
start and what brought you to Meridian?
Yeah, so I started my career in HR actually. Grew up in Brampton, Ontario, went to McMaster Business School in the late 80s when there weren't a lot of opportunities out there. So I always knew I was a business person, but I started my career in HR, spent many years leading HR, moved into technology, and you're going to go, oh, that seems strange. But yeah, moved into technology, led technology and sort of that early digital adoption of technology and two other credit unions. And then I ran a business and then left and joined Meridian. So I've sort of got the understand people, process, and technology. And what I'm most excited about as a sort of my personal purpose is to help others succeed. And so I get to do that every day, all day with the people that I lead in the organization and also the members that we get to see flourish in their own lives and in the companies that they own.
So one of the things that I notice whenever I'm interviewing CEOs is that over the course of your career, there seem to be lots of pivots.
Mm-hmm.
So HR, pivot to technology, pivot to your own business.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Um, why? That's a great question. Well, I think I get bored easy. Um, so so I don't know. I've had this. I'm a lifelong learner and a curious mind, and my mind is always curious. And I like to see things come to life. Like I like to be on the beginning stages of building something or creating something. And so and I think, people are the backbone of everything, whether it's, you have to have your eye on people and culture to run a team, run an organization. Without people, you could have all the great processes in the world. You could think of all the great customers, but you need them to deliver. So I think it was a natural sort of shift for me to take all I learned about leading people, organizing people, structuring people, and then you layer on the technology piece, process piece, and yeah. So I think it was, and I think my mom would say that I was, and she knew I was going to be a leader when I was in kindergarten. So sometimes it's just sort of maybe a bit in your psyche. So
I love that.
yeah,
So now you're the CEO. This is a hard question.
yeah.
Now you're the CEO.
hmm
What is your vision? Like, how do you envision Meridian
yeah.
helping small and medium-sized businesses?
So we put together a business strategy called Meridian for Good, and it's really building on the roots of being a cooperative financial institution. And how do we make sure that we're enabling the money that we have to flow in service of healthy communities and people and planet? And so our purpose is to help you achieve your best life. And so how we do that and how we're doing that through our strategy is making sure that we're the opportunities are there for people to take advantage of, that we're helping them understand how money plays in their world, helping them plan for a future that's different. So whether that's thinking about climate change or thinking about a world that's a lot more diverse, and how do we make sure that we are inclusive of that? And then giving people confidence. And I've been around financial services now for 17 or 18 years, and I've always hated the word financial literacy, because I think it implies that we know something you don't know. And so I much prefer to talk about financial confidence, which I think is our job as a financial institution, is to help you be confident, right? And understand how money works, how you use money, how you deploy money, how you save money, how you plan for the future. So those are kind of how. So yeah, so we call it Meridian for Good, out in the organization, sharing it. Everybody's super excited about it. And I think purpose, if you can connect what you do every day to a purpose, it makes you better at doing your job.
So, I mean, you talked about confidence.
Mhm.
So I need some confidence. Like,
Okay.
why is it so hard to
Yeah.
access capital for new
Mhm.
entrepreneurs?
I think there's some systemic issues associated with, we're a regulated financial institution like everybody else. And so, that sort of, you've got to have the right, you got to have the right strategy, you got to have the right board, you got to have the right attitude inside your organization. Then you have to have the right policies and structures that can make sure that you're doing all the right things. So I think there's some systemic barriers to entrepreneurs around how do they fit within a mold, around what does a good customer look like. So I think that's a barrier. I think the second barrier is I think once you've sort of gone through that, start your own business, maybe you talk to friends and family about community, about investing in you, things start to click, and you're not quite sure, what you need to do to scale, to grow, and you don't know where to go. I think that's the other sort of hole that entrepreneurs fall into, right? Is where do I go for that kind of information and advice? And so I like to think, and I believe our employees and the folks who support our commercial and business members here are that trusted advisor to come in and ask those questions. But I think it's helping entrepreneurs get over their fear of growth, right? And helping them have access to the right conversations and the right people to help them achieve what they are hoping to achieve.
So you touched upon it, that there are these barriers,
Mm-hmm.
and a great way to get around them are people. But
Yep.
can you share some examples of how Meridian is helping
Yep.
innovative businesses access capital?
Yeah, so we have a desire to help communities who are diverse, and we've been doing that, but we've never really thought about it in terms of something that we could do, and codify it into the organization. So the way we're doing that is by working with strategic partners and organizations who are there to support entrepreneurs. So the Afro-Canadian Business Network, the indigenous communities, and some of even like the friendship centers and things like that. So working with our organizations out there that are trying to help their communities, lift themselves out of poverty and into reconciliation on the indigenous side, and into kind of a future that's a lot brighter. So working with organizations that are also there to help. So kind of creating that ecosystem, that safe place for organizations to be able to get the right advice, get some help, and get access to money.
So you're talking about all these different organizations you work with,
Mm-hmm.
and you also touched upon sort of that broader kind of helping people build a better
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand Meridian is partnering with the Métis Nation of Ontario
Yep.
in a housing pilot program.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So the Métis Nation, unlike other Indigenous communities, they don't have a community, right? So they wanted to enable their members to buy a home, and the members were facing barriers. They didn't have the money, the equity to kind of put a down payment on a home. So the Métis Nation, with their own money that they get through the things that they do, were willing to kind of put the equity into a home. So they went out and they worked with a number of different organizations that were building affordable housing, and they were able to secure a number of units. And then they went to their members and said, we'll come in and help you provide the equity. And Meridian, we came in and said, we'll help you finance it. So it's a joint relationship. And it takes a creative way to look at how you do mortgage financing, because that's not, we've got an organization and an individual now sharing the equity portion. And their capital is patient, so they're willing to wait, and we're willing to finance it because we think it's a great model.
Wow, that is really interesting.
We also
Um,
do Habitat for Humanity. We're sort of looking at this. Housing is really expensive, and not everybody has the equity to do it. And some people might have parents who can help, but many don't. And so, is there different creative models out there that we can be putting in service of making sure that people get a place to live, because it's really important, but B, also get to be able to build some wealth and have a something that they can then use to help finance things like a small business if that's where they're going.
wow, this takes me to my next question about new Canadians. So my wife,
Mm-hmm.
she is a new Canadian. She
Mm-hmm.
came to Canada when she was starting out. Like, man, it was like impossible to get a credit card.
Right.
Like 98 rejections. And now she's a business owner,
Yeah.
permanent resident in Canada. So new Canadians have a really different set of challenges when they come to
Mm-hmm.
Canada.
Yeah.
And they have a ton of barriers when they're launching their own business. How do you support newcomers?
Yeah. So we're just, I think, working on that problem right now. So I think we've been doing it ad hocly, but we've just put together a new to Canada offer, and looking at how can we address that particular issue alone, right? Who can we be working with to make sure that, because a credit card, as you say, is like one of the first things you need to do in order to get a credit rating and all that kind of stuff. So working again with a couple of partners, looking at how do we make sure that we're helping to allow that to happen by taking their information that they have from other countries or wherever, and helping to address it. So I think that's one way. I think the second way is, we have done things like we've got an awards program right now for small businesses, and so we're putting money out there to help small businesses get what they need to kind of get themselves set up. So we're kind of, I think, approaching it in working within a network around bringing those players to the table, and then making sure inside our organization that we are working on really understanding. I think this is where things are different potentially here, is that we really understand all of the things about that individual, that small business owner, so that we can get to yes, or if we have to say no, which sometimes we do that fast.
So how many small business customers do you have, and is it growing?
It's growing. I don't know the number off the top. I think you could probably get that. We could probably get that data. Not enough, in my opinion, which is why it's a strategy that we certainly want to be able to build. So we have quite a number, but most of our most of our members would be retail members, but an opportunity for us to play in a much bigger way.
So
Yeah.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
No, like whenever I think of financial institutions, I think of, secure email and lots of forms. And I do still think of a fax machine.
Yeah.
So bureaucracy, red tape, it's just like sometimes they're financial institutions are so hard to access. So how does Meridian make things easier?
Yeah. So, I think hopefully on a journey to reduce that. So we've done a lot around digital enablement. We're just launching a new digital onboarding portal for small businesses. So I think we're going to be one of the first credit unions to sort of do that in a bigger way. So trying to include digital, we're working on a small loan kind of process, fully automating it, making it simpler for members. And I think, trying to take that friction out of our processes so that it is easier for our members to deal with us.
So I want to start my business. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
excited.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I work with you? Why should I work with you and not with one of the big banks?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. One, I think, we believe that there is a value in working with organizations who share your values, because I think if we have the same values, then it helps us to know each other better and work together. So I think number one, if, the cooperative spirit, the cooperative values really are about collaboration and working together and members helping members and collectively creating a better future. And so I think there's a connection there that we hope resonates with business members, number one. Number two, I think our business model is not is profit driven, but profit driven to enable more to happen. So we want to help entrepreneurs create more jobs because it's good for your community. We want to help members meet their financial goals. And so you bring your deposits and those deposits go to work. Slightly different than a chartered bank where, the profits are going back to investors, which is not a bad thing, but it's just a different mindset, a different model. So I think there's a values connection. I think we are small enough and nimble enough that we can address things that are unusual easier than a large institution that has very rigid kind of roles and guidelines, right? So there's more fluidity and more flexibility. And that's the core story that I hear from members who, when I talk to business members, why did you choose us? That's one of the core things. And I think finally, we have really great people. We have a lot of ex-bankers who work for us because they wanted to work for an organization that they felt had a purpose and they didn't feel like they were getting that. So our goal is to do the right thing for the member, whether they, it's not to sell them products, but to really do the right thing for the member. So I think it's a combination of you have a set of values, we have a set of values. Our people understand how to do this, but know that they can do it in a different way because of who we are. And you join us. We're a community. It's not like just a customer, a consumer relationship. It's more than that.
I love the halo effect you just
Yeah.
described. I also like throwing shots at the bank. I think that's really, really, really great. Um, so I have you here. And this is like a big question. What is your take on the economy right now?
Yeah.
Are there any mega trends that you'd like to share with the audience? And how will these affect small business owners?
Yeah, I think we're in a volatile time, obviously. I believe that I think we're hitting the peak of that. I think that the stats would say, the economy is cooling, and that means the Bank of Canada can sort of back off its increasing interest rate environment, which is a good thing for everybody. I agree with them, and we were talking long before the Bank of Canada started saying we're not going to go back to the interest rates that we've seen over the last couple of years, but I think we'll end in a 3 to 5 sort of percentage. I think the Canadian economy is fueled by entrepreneurs, and so I think that growing more local Canadian businesses is a good thing for our country. And so I, want to make sure that, as we come out of this, that we're set up for success. I think late 24, 25 will be a much bigger opportunity for people. The labor issue will continue. So, all businesses need to be thinking about how do you be an employer of choice and how do you make that employment experience more interesting for your people, because people will have lots of choices. We don't have the population, and we're trying to grow the population by bringing in new people. But I think labor will continue to be a challenge. And I was just reading an article about artificial intelligence. So the businesses, and us included, who are out there have to learn how to adapt to that new digital world, right? And where consumers are, that's where we all have to learn to be. So I would say keeping your costs, keeping your eye on how do you employ technology, because the cost of that's coming down, which is a good thing for small businesses, right? So I think, and then finally, I think the climate, we all have to be doing our part around a cleaner future. And so how do you do that? And some of the things that we're talking about is we've been on a journey, an ESG journey, to kind of measure our carbon footprint. We have products out there for our members if they want to retrofit their homes or retrofit their businesses. We have the ability for them to get a loan to do that. But I think we have to share more of our knowledge to help our members and our business members understand how can I actually put some of these practices into. So I don't think the climate conversation is going to go away. I think it's going to get more intense. And I think understanding how do you reach people in this new digital world and making sure you're getting the right people.
Those are like all the mega trends.
Well,
So
I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't think those things are going to go away. And then I do think we always have to be prepared for some sort of health crisis, right? Like we've lived now through this pandemic.
yes,
I think we can't say this is a once in a lifetime thing. I think we always have to be on the edge of how do we make sure if we're running a business that we can pivot, keeping that spirit of agility.
oh my God.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it takes me to my final two questions, which is
yeah.
it is December tomorrow.
Mhm.
Like
I know, isn't that crazy?
it's ridiculous. So
Yeah.
2024,
Hmm.
what are your goals for Meridian? And
Yep.
what are your personal goals as we enter the new year?
Hmm. So big goals for Meridian. We started the year with doing really well in terms of providing financing to entrepreneurs that are in new sectors that we're trying to go into, like manufacturing and healthcare, but also overlaying that diversity piece. So we want to double that next year. We want to make sure that we're doing all the right things for our members as it relates to advice and support through this time. And we have a significant portion of our retail book that will be coming due. Mortgages come due. So how are we getting out in front of that? It'll be second year of our business strategy. So making sure that gets embedded inside the organization even further. So those will be some of the kind of corporate goals. People don't know who we are, so we've got some thoughts around branding so that people get to know us more. And so we've got efforts going on there and some really cool stuff on our digital platform. So that's operationally. I would love us to be people to know who we are, people to be able to want to join us, create that movement because we're doing all the right things. And so next year, I think, is a test year around, how far did we move the needle? For me personally, it'll be year 3 of my role as CEO. And so I want to make sure that we're starting to accelerate talent and accelerate that skill transition for our employees, because it's going to be really important. Things like allowing them to put AI in service of improving processes and things like that. So for me, it's all about starting to think about leaving that legacy for the next generation of leaders to lead this organization into the future.
That's a lot.
A lot, yeah. I don't go small. I go big, Jason. I have too many things I want to do. Yeah.
Jan, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to learning more and seeing what you do in the new year.
That's great. Okay. Thanks. Have a great day.